We're snorting cap rates and shooting up cash flow here at Deal Junkies. Welcome back to Deal Junkies. We are back in the studio wishing Trevor a happy 29th birthday. And we got to tell you guys what happened. Are you ready for this? After Trevor got on air and made fun of me for almost crashing our boat, he decided to take the boat at full speed, 30 miles an hour, and launch it onto a sandbar, which I think was more of a rock.
Rocks. It was rocks.
More of a rock bar.
It was a boulder bar. Yeah, it was a bunch of boulders.
He doesn't realize those little floaty things in the water are supposed to be avoided.
The cones. Well, I told him, don't go in the middle of the lake. It's really shallow right there.
Yeah. The weird thing is that this was Detroit Lake, which is, there is so much water.
Highest we've ever seen it.
There's so much water. There's it's a big lake
with a few boulders
with some rocks, and the rocks are marked. And
no. So I'm going, and then I'm like, dang, that's some weird water.
No,
there.
you did not. No,
I'm like,
no.
Why is that water?
No, you did
like
not.
That?
Trevor goes. It looks weird up there. 2/4 of a second, 1/2 of a second before we just friggin' fly in the air 2 feet and then go and land on a bunch of rocks. We're high centered in the middle of a lake.
Did anybody fly like out of the boat?
I mean,
no.
Matush left the seat. Like I was in the air for a moment.
You have a friend named Matush?
Matush.
Matush flew out of the boat.
So I got the boat stuck in between all the rocks. And we spent 45 minutes trying to push it over the rocks.
Yeah, and you hurt your back.
Okay, so for any listeners that know how to drive boats, come out, go to
No,
Detroit
I know
Lake,
how to drive.
Teach these guys.
I was like, we're in the middle of the lake. I'll just let Trevor drive.
Why my real estate friends choose to own boats, I will never understand.
All I do is drive the boat for Trevor, and then I was like, Trevor can drive for a minute. I'm gonna sit here and talk to Hunter, and then 30 seconds later, we're flying in a boat.
The same thing Gabe did to the boat too.
Oh
why do you let Trevor leave the world of spreadsheets?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
I did that to the old boat.
Oh,
But I was going like 5 miles an hour.
Yeah, so if we were going 5, it would have been easier.
Actually, would have been fine. Yeah,
we would have got it out easy.
And I only launched one little kid out of that boat. Dude, it was okay.
We were sitting there though, and I thought we were gonna have to call 911 or just leave the boat. Like,
I love how you're stuck high centered in the middle of a lake and you're gonna call 911.
I don't know who you call.
Trevor goes, "Do we call 911?" And then I was like, "No." And then he looks over at a boat that's wake surfing like 500 yards away. He goes, "Help! Help!" And starts waving his hands. Hunter and I are trying to push the boat out of the rocks. And I was like, dude, we can get it. Just
I thought it was done for.
Let's do the 911 call.
But
911, where's your emergency? Hi, this is Trevor. We are stuck in the middle of the lake.
How are you calling me right now?
Is anybody hurt? Well, my back hurts because we've been pushing this boat.
My pride hurts.
My boat's really messed up. Do you have somebody that can come help?
Can you come get me off the rocks?
We'll throw a helicopter in.
We need some big guys out here.
Hey, the good news is though, the prop is completely destroyed, but
it didn't sink. The boat didn't sink.
That's good.
Well, because it was already up on rocks.
Yeah, and a prop only costs like $1,000.
Oh, good.
$1,200.
So less damage to the boat than Dane did.
So it's not total.
$140 a month.
Yeah,
it's just the bottom of the boat does not look good.
Doesn't look too bad though.
I would imagine
it looks.
Okay, let's get into real estate.
Okay, what kind of deals are we going to talk about?
I don't know. They don't like my deals.
So
he wants to do some hypothetical because he doesn't like me.
We have some deals we're doing, but we don't want to share them because we learned our lesson about sharing deals.
Yeah, we tried to have fun one time. And then
just ruined
all the listeners ruined it for us.
Yeah. One listener ruined it for us.
So we don't love all of our Deal Junkie listeners, is what you're saying.
Yes, but
I love them all.
I'll give you a hypothetical deal. I'll give you a deal situation to talk through.
Okay.
So this is a 37-unit apartment complex.
Hypothetically.
Prime number.
Yep. These don't exist. There's actually no such thing as a 37 unit. So.
Well, you might have a house that you built 36 units next to.
So a 37 unit.
You're saying no one built a 37 unit? Guaranteed someone built a 37
there for
unit.
sure is somewhere,
Yeah.
but 37 unit apartment complex. It's very low leverage on this. It's an underperforming asset. The seller is a partnership. One of the sellers wants to go one way and 1031 into a project. The other seller wants to remain in the deal just as a passive partner.
Are they in one entity?
They are, but they dropped and swapped.
What's that mean?
They went from their LLC to two
Personal
different
names or two different
LLCs,
entities?
Yeah, and
Okay.
ticked on together.
Okay.
So they can go their separate ways. So one dude's going one way with some of the proceeds. The other guy wants to do an equity contribution, have us come in, take over the project, supply some new debt, get a little bit of cash out, contribute their equity forward.
So you're setting up a new partnership with one of the partners who's dropped into his own entity on the project, okay?
Yep. So they're putting their equity forward, which is enough for the down payment, and it debt covers. And this one partner going forward is actually two, so it's three people, let's call it, in this imaginary situation. Let's actually call it four. Two going one way, two going another way.
Okay.
So you got,
now I'm confused.
yeah, me too.
Perfect.
But you got these two guys coming with us. The problem with like this deal structure, we've used
Coming with us on this hypothetical deal.
Yeah.
'Kay.
The problem with the deal structure is a lot of time when we like to use this structure, it's a larger asset and the equity contribution is approved. But in this specific hypothetical market, it's a little bit harder to get the equity contribution. It's a different bank that will lend on it. So it's
Because the
it's
bank wants to see skin? They don't
well,
want
no. They just don't. So, like, how I would like to do this is they become a passive partner. They're essentially LP. They don't have to sign on debt going forward. They're going to own 50% of the deal. We're going to own 50%
How do you
of
own
the deal.
50% and not sign on the debt?
So when you're like syndicating a deal, right, and your LP can own 70%, similar to that.
Okay.
Or
so
if
their
you're doing-
LP, the way that the operating agreement is written is they don't have voting rights, and so their LP, they don't sign on debt.
You can do it that way, yeah. So the problem is, like, because it's a smaller deal, smaller asset than doing this on a big deal where, like, you know, Freddie and Fannie, like, that's a structure that they will accept and they'll do, and they're like, yeah, that makes
Well,
sense.
37 Fannie or Freddie would do.
All right, this is a 17 unit.
It's getting smaller now.
All right, it's a 3-unit deal. But so the problem they're running into is
Who's they?
the bank. They want to see these people sign on the debt, but then part of the deal is like you're not signing on the debt. You're just a passive
Because the
partner.
loan amount's small enough, they want someone with more than 25% to be
more than
guarantor.
20%.
20%,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's thinking through like how do you do that? So I'm trying to think.
You
through,
give them 19%.
Well, that's what I'm doing, and then do you sell them more ownership down the road, and then you're good to go?
They have an option to buy it.
Yeah. So like if they have the option to buy in, then they don't have to be guarantors or something.
Yeah, I don't know what happens when somebody takes, like in a partnership, somebody's not on the debt, and then they take more ownership later on down the road. Does the bank, do the covenants say that you have to disclose ownership changes?
I don't know. That's
or-
why I'm asking you.
We'd have
Breaking
to-
a loan covenant.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to just ask if there's loan covenants that
Yeah.
bar us from giving more ownership down the road.
But it doesn't matter. You can break loan covenants. It's not against the law. We talked about that last episode.
It's against the loan covenants,
Yeah.
not against the law.
So you do not like
So
to
it
break
is
loan
bank
covenants.
fraud, but it's not bank fraud.
So it's
Is that what
okay
you're
to
saying?
break loan covenants on your own loan, but you don't want to break loan covenants on your own loan, but you will assume you'll take we'll have someone break covenants on their loan and then just service their loan for them.
at their own risk. They
Yeah.
must do their own due diligence.
I would like to not break loan covenants.
That'd be preferred. Yes.
Yeah.
I've never broken loan covenants.
Has anybody?
Yeah, Mike does all the time, dude.
That's true.
I mean, what's breaking loan covenant?
Well,
Never
Every
break
loan's
loan covenant.
different.
debt cover hits below 1.3.
I think very few people understand their loan covenants.
covenants.
My
Yeah.
question is because you do this similar deal structure on your SMI fund, right? Are you guys typically using?
We don't even know what your deal structure is because you've done such a shitty job explaining the deal. So so this two dudes own an asset. One of them, half of it wants to go away, half of it wants to keep it. So you want to buy half out and have the other guy contribute half into a new partnership,
Yep.
Yeah,
but
it sounds
not
like
put
I
but
explained
not
it
put him
pretty
on the
good.
debt.
but not put him on the debt. But he owns half, so he essentially needs to own half. But
Yeah.
you don't want him liable for
And
the
we
debt.
need the half for the equity to go out and
Yeah.
leverage in.
And the asset's not big enough. You can't do a LP structure that will
Correct.
then the lender will allow it because
I-
it's a low balance sheet.
Correct.
So what
They
I-
need to go buy more fucking real estate so
Yeah.
you can go get bigger loans.
what I've run into before in the past is when you take a very, let's call it complex or sophisticated deal structure and line it up with a very small asset, small loan size, small market, it doesn't work. you have to take more complex structures and put them into bigger assets in more, at least secondary and primary markets.
So the move is you just bring more cash and then you carve their ownership percentage down so then they're below the signing percentage.
Yep.
Okay.
I think you just bake them in at 19%
Yeah.
so that they don't have to sign on debt, and then there's an agreement somewhere in there that they can buy more shares down the road, and then you just
just look
I don't
at
know.
see what talk to the lender about them.
But then
buying
they're
more.
getting essentially they're taking their 50 down by 31%. Does that create a taxable event for them?
So what
Yeah.
you
then
referenced with the SMI fund, the 721 fund that we call it the SMI Legacy Fund, is that people are contributing their equity in for shares of ownership in a much larger fund.
Yeah.
So they're not staying in that particular deal.
Uh-huh.
They're going to take shares of all the
And
hundreds
then
of
you're
millions of
restructuring
dollars.
debt on the specific deal at that point.
On that particular deal, we're going to we're going to buy that deal
in that
with our own debt.
structure. How come? Because you guys are the only guarantors, right? None of these people have to sign on any of these debts.
They do not have to sign on the debt.
What
no.
type of lenders are you guys typically using within that pool?
It's a mixed bag. We started when we were small. We did local credit unions,
and they liked the fund structure. They were okay with it.
some of them because they knew us and we had
But
done
it was
loans
hard.
with them
Was
in
it
the
hard
past.
for them to wrap their mind around
Yes,
it first?
it was not easy. And then it moved into other types of more like private financing. They're not really banks. They were more like just private companies, the places we've been using the last few years to do loans. And the goal ultimately, which is where we're at now, is to use Fannie and Freddie. And
Yeah,
do
because they're used to syndications. and
agency
funds.
debt is used to syndication. They're used to this type of structure.
Yeah.
And there's LPs and they're coming in, and that's so I think that's really the model that lines up with this structure you're describing.
Yeah.
Is agency debt.
Do you guys run into problems with that? As in, because you have U4 guaranteeing the loans and your fund is growing at such a pace that you won't have the net worth to give you the guarantor.
What ends up happening? Well, maybe. What's happening at this stage, I would say, is not necessarily that, and we're also getting to the point where we can do non-recourse.
and
so
then does that still not apply?
we come on as KP or whatever, but we're in a non-recourse loan. So I think they start to look more at the fund and our portfolio, and they're lending off of the assets more so than us as individual borrowers. Because eventually we'll go out and buy $100 million asset, and none of us yet has a net worth of $100 million. And
But
so,
combined, you guys do.
yeah, combined we're fine.
Yeah.
Yep. So I don't know. I mean, the lending world is really interesting because it really, really changes from community lenders and credit unions up into the banks, and to once you get into agency debt and stuff, the rules all kind of change at each stage of the game. But I think I think agency debt is the way to go. An agency will do small balance. You can do as long as it's like $1 million loan or
Part of the
whatever.
problem with they will, and they'll accept that deal structure. But part of the problem is due to the market condition, the market size, in this hypothetical deal.
It's a small market.
The DSCR requirement is so high that now the equity contribution doesn't make as much sense to move forward with because they've
So now you're lining up. That's what I'm saying about the structure type not lining up with the particular asset and the market that you're in.
Yeah.
That same exact structure will work perfectly in Salem, Oregon on a 50-unit complex.
Yeah.
Easy.
This is where if you just buy the asset and trade the asset, you don't have to worry about it.
Or find a way to trade it before you even buy it.
There you go.
It's almost like I don't know. It's like a wholesale deal.
Mm-hmm. Internal or wholesale deal.
Yeah.
I think how I'm doing it is going to be pretty good. But
How are you going to do it?
well,
TBD?
Yeah, and working through it.
So, I mean, just can you create a note for his other 50% he's going to hold? Now you have a seller finance installment sale,
Possibly,
and
yeah.
then you can just sell and liquidate the load.
Yeah,
the note.
so seller comes in as
Yeah.
debt and equity, and
Yeah.
then their debt gets converted down the road to
Yeah.
equity. That'd be another way
So
to do
part
it.
of the problem is I don't know a lot of people doing this deal structure, and I can't find a lot of information on it. So it's kind of just like thinking through it and then calling lenders and
Well,
asking them.
welcome
about
to
it.
being a trailblazer. Go.
Yeah, dude, there's nothing wrong with buying something just to sell it, just to tee up the financing to fit into your global structure. I do that with seller financing all the time. Like I bought a condo in Vancouver. I did not want to own the condo, but I loved the seller. We already had notes with him, so we just reverse engineered if you sold it this day, what's your net? Great, we'll create a note for the net, and then we'll just buy it and we'll reposition it, and then we'll sell
Move
it,
the
and then
note.
we have the note.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why selling is good. Selling's very good. It's cleansing.
Sometimes.
It's very cleansing.
So how's your 14 unit deal going? That you were subdividing the triplex off, or was it already divided?
It was unknown if it was truly divided
Was
or
it
not.
divided or not?
Ultimately, it was. We were
Okay.
able to correct the deed portion of
Okay.
it.
Did you sell the triplex then?
Not yet. We're renovating the triplex now. So we focused on the detox facility first to get that project going and under management and flowing, because that's the bigger part of that partnership, is getting that repositioned.
The partnership, you bought a detox facility and the 14 unit that
Together
you won over
in
us
one
together.
partnership.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then your plan with the 14 unit was to sell the triplex, hold the other 11. And this is a renovation project, correct? Going through the whole thing. Has it been performing as you expected on the front end?
Yeah. The 14 unit's been great. We bought it. We did some initial rent increases. We did some initial like roofing and dry rot and gutters, and got essentially the envelope cured, and then stopped working on it and let it just pay for itself over the winter. And then prepped ourselves to how are we going to sell the triplex. So when we bought it, we had 3 strategies with the triplex, which is do nothing to it and sell it, do rent increases and sell it, fully maximize and sell it for as much as we possibly can, huge renovation, then somewhere in the middle. And so what we ultimately decided was we want to get as much forced appreciation out of that as possible. So the triplex was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 1920s home, moved to the site, and then a duplex was built onto the back of it.
Oh, wow.
So the duplex units are really sweet, but the 4-bedroom unit was 20-year tenant with no rent increases. And so it was borderline hoarder house. So we gave a termination to that one tenant. Out of all 14, that one tenant got a termination notice, and now we're fully renovating that, so that way we could sell the triplex for max value.
How much are you going to sell it for, you think?
300 units probably the max, but I think Vancouver can get 300 grand a unit right now where it's at, which is stupid.
300 a unit.
Well,
900 grand.
because it's the house, so that's like, I mean, you got
It has good income. I mean, it's $6,000 a month in rent, probably gross market rent, which is about 950 and a 150 gross rent multiplier, or a 12.2 gross rent multiplier, depending on yearly or monthly. So in the world of gross rents, it makes sense. Valuation. In the world of DSCR and net operating income, it makes no sense. But that's not what we're selling into. We're selling into an owner-occupied finance
And
market.
so you sell for $9,950. What's the note that you got to pay off on that?
Yeah, we've got a
$450.
$2 million note on the entire property, and they will release the triplex for $200,000 price reduction. And so then we take the net of that sale to throw capital back at our partners. That's our cash back. That's our BRRRR strategy. Half of our BRRRR strategy comes from selling the triplex to get capital back, and then refinancing out of the detox facility to get capital back. So the whole play is raise $1 million of liquidity, buy these 2 properties, reposition these 2 properties, sell the triplex, refinance the detox, get the 1.1 in money back.
So going back to your 14 unit, you sell this triplex. Are you concerned about who the buyer of that is, and from a management standpoint, how the triplex operates next to your 11 unit?
No, the 11 unit's on a flag lot behind the 3plex. So we're kind of segregating them by like putting up fences and kind of drawing in property lines that exist that don't look like they exist.
But it's going to be expensive, so somebody will probably take care of it. But if one day you had a slumlord or somebody just lets the grass go,
yeah,
or
if you
something
saw what
happen,
this 11 unit building looked like, you wouldn't really care about what the 3 unit has.
Mike doesn't wait that long. He sells.
That's true.
So it
I'm
won't
always
matter to
always
him.
thinking about down the road, and
Yeah,
this is a very.
Why
short
do you think
lived.
that I don't think about down the
I'm
road?
just
Like you try to throw me the. If there's anything I've proven is there's a box and I don't fit in it.
Well, okay, let's talk about that. If you're
Yeah.
thinking you might sell the 11 unit in a couple years, are you worried about how that first sale of a triplex might affect the sale of the 11?
No, because they're 2
plex?
separate market segments and 2 separate buyers and 2 separate finance committees, and so, and I didn't tee it up to sell the 11 unit. At the end of the day, hopefully we can refi off the 1.8 in debt off of the 11 units
and keep it.
Yeah, and if we can get those up to $1,800 a month in rent, which that's not far above market right now.
Are they 2x1s?
No, they're 2 1.5s. They're townhomes. They're
Townhomes.
nice units.
1,800 after you turn them, or
Yeah, right now we rented one at $1,700.
oh wow.
We have one now. It's kind of funky interior unit at $1,695 that we lowered it to $1,695, maybe $1,595 to get multiple applications.
What'd you buy this for?
225
What is that per door?
for 14. It was like 170 or 180. I don't know. I think the basis to me was I don't care about the triplex. We're using the triplex to reduce our basis in the entire building, and I'm happy with the 1.8 basis on 11 units that perform around $1,800 a month.
Did you
17,
do, because it was 2 properties, did you have to start with 2 separate deeds?
No, here's the beauty of it is they already had 2 tax statements. They already had 2 land and improvement valuations. So what we did is we bought it. We cost segged the 11 unit, did not cost seg the 3 unit, the 3 unit. They had their own legal descriptions. The reason that they were not 2 properties in the eyes of the county was because the legal descriptions that were recorded when they went through all this land use stuff, the deeds had the wrong legal descriptions. So they're not seen as properties because of a recording error. And this happens a lot when people are self-doing their land use processes, or self-doing quitclaim deeds, or self-doing land sale contracts, where they just get the legal description wrong. And so we were able to go through the process to prove, like, hey, here's records of your land use claim. Like, there's the application. Here's the very clear what they wanted to do. They recorded the deeds wrong. And because of that, we can only get 1 title policy.
How'd the legal description end up being wrong? They just
wrote it wrong.
They wrote the legal description.
Yep, they hand wrote it.
Oh.
Yep, and just wrote it wrong.
I thought you had to have like a survey to come up with a accurate legal description.
Not back in the set, right? So zoning code started in '79 in Portland.
What do you say? Like starting at the fire hydrant, going 50 feet north.
No, well, so there's a difference between meets and bounds and lot and block, right? So meets and bounds, you're just describing, hey, from this point to this point to this point to this point. These were both lot and blocks. So it was created. The problem is you have like lot number 2 and block 3. They did like lot 3, block 2.
Oh.
So it's a stupid little thing.
They mislabeled it.
Yeah. And it wasn't that. It was parcel 1, parcel 2. And you're supposed to have a new deed with 1 legal description, parcel 1, and 1 with legal 2. And then they try to do 2 deeds with legal descriptions stating both parcels. So it just was a small clerical issue 30 years ago that ultimately resulted in getting taxed as if they're 2 properties, but in the title world, it's one property. Yeah. So it was a legal lot of record.
So you clean that up with new legal descriptions?
Yeah, it's like a $400 fee and some work with the title of the company.
Okay.
Yeah, you just recorded new.
Yeah, new legal descriptions. Yeah. There's a process you have to go through at the county. And so we went through that process. And so now we've got the 2 sellable properties. We're remodeling the 1. And then part of, again, there's the market conditions, there's your internal intrinsic process, right? So for us, getting the detox facility on board and up and running and getting that project going, because that's the biggest event, or that's the shortest period of debt, that's the biggest balloon of the refi, like that's the bigger issue. So we focus on that while we just kind of minimally sustain the 14 unit or the 14 unit. And then once we got the detox facility going, we paperwork wise got the 14 units even more sustainable through rent increases. And we're essentially planning for rent control to go in Vancouver, right? So how do we set ourselves up for this? So we put in rent increase notices that were to market rent with some rent concessions built in. So that way we didn't do terminations. So we could keep an income stream if they wanted to stay, or if we want to sell, there's a contract rent there where now rent control doesn't keep you from bumping rent because you're not doing rent increases. Rent concessions are expiring. Does that make sense?
Is that legal?
I don't know. I've never been tested.
So you put them on a lease at a very high rent and then tell them we're going to give you...
Feels good.
So the first time I did this...
We're going to give you $500 off for the first 6 months, then it's going to go to $400 off. And so your rent bumps are baked in with concessions burning off.
Yeah, so we did this, like, we had rent tenants in Portland that were like $600 a month. The market rate was $1,500 and rent control was going in. So we put everyone to $1,500 a month because it was not against the law to do that large of a rent increase. But we didn't want to displace all the tenants, and so we just gave them a $900 rent increase and a $900 rent concession for year 1. And then that went to an $800 rent concession for year 2. And we just made it a 9-year lease, and they took $100 off the concession every.
Wow.
Yeah. So paperwork-wise, we've protected the value of our property because now you get a larger than law allows for an increase of income. We didn't break the law because we established this prior to the law. You're not sending any notices. You're not doing anything. The mechanism of the lease just changes the income stream. So we've protected the long-term and short-term income of the property. We didn't violate any laws, and we didn't have to terminate anybody. We could keep low-income tenants.
I think you're going to jail, like you told Rob.
Hey, it's gray area. We all work. I never told him he's going to jail. Come on.
Rob and Mike, be sellies.
You're bank fraud. So we did that with some of the tenants because we don't want to do terminations. We want to have the ability to do larger than rent control rent increases will allow, because that's reasonable given where rents are at.
What was your conversation like with the tenants? You had to go to each one of them, have this conversation?
Yeah. They don't care. Their rent stays the same.
So they signed a 9-year lease, and you just gave them an out.
Yeah,
They can get
and
out
two of
any
them already
time?
died.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
What?
2 of the tenants?
Yeah, died.
How sad. So
That's why you don't want to terminate them, because you know they're going to die.
Oh, how sad.
You have compassion.
So genuine. Oh, how sad. So anyways, how does the lease function, though? 9-year lease on a residential property. Oh, darn.
I'm
when
sorry.
someone's been there for 10 years, do you think they care?
No,
What
no.
I want to know is, so did you gave them like no lease break fee or what?
Yeah,
what-
yeah, exactly.
So it's
All
like-
we're trying to do is protect ourselves. Like, if you want to move out, we're not going to, like, no, dude, I want to keep you here $500 below market rent. No, leave, get out. You know, we're giving you the option to stay if you want to stay, and we're not, if you want to leave, we're not keeping you in there. Yeah, good question.
So now on Washington's rent control, you can move in the next tenant at market rate. You're not
Correct.
bound by your last
Yeah,
tenant. Just like
and the reason
Oregon.
we did this is because we didn't know if they're going to lock in from vacancy to vacancy, like California or San Fran, where you
Certain
cannot
markets,
increase. Yeah, correct.
They have true rent control.
Yeah. So it's just protecting against the unknown, because ultimately these are the values. This is my net worth, right? Like, I can let the politicians change my net worth overnight, or I can strategize to keep my net worth intact. That's how I looked at
So how far along are you with the care facility?
it. We're physically like almost done.
Nice.
But so roofs are done, windows are done, paint's done, flooring's done, essentially fixtures are done, all the rough plumbing's done, the panels are changed, all the rough electrical's done, framing for new ADA bathrooms is done. We have not had the permit issued. So once the permit gets issued, we can call in inspections on the rough ends. We can get approved to cover. We can then finish quickly after that. So it's the permitting process with the city is what we're waiting for right now.
And then you have your whole business plan and operations ready to go at that point?
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
have
The
demand for
tenant
this
is
already?
dying to get in.
Aren't you? Yeah, you're master leasing it to somebody,
Yeah,
aren't you?
correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're just dying to get in, even to the point where one of the partners is like, we need to pull out. This is taking too long.
Oh, so are you at risk of losing that
No.
tenant?
No, because no one has this building. We have the best building for what they want to do. Like, they can get as mad as what they want, but when you have what no one else has, you're kind of in control. And the reason being is just every month they lose hundreds of thousands of dollars every month they don't move in. Not that they lose it, they don't earn
Get
it.
to earn it, yeah.
Correct. And so when you have a partnership, one guy's looking at, we're losing hundreds of thousands, the other guy's like, no, we're just not earning it. This is the right building for us long term. So I'm not concerned about the tenant going away. And now they've actually spent a lot of money on stuff to go into the building. But it's an interesting permitting process because we're working with the city on the TI permit. The other thing we did with the tenant is you need drawings for the state facility plan for your income stream that comes from Medicare or Medicaid, whatever it comes from. So we had our architect do the drawings for the state level. And so now you have the state looks at it one way, planning and zoning looks at it another way, structural looks at it another way. And so you have, it's not even left hand, right hand. It's like left middle finger, right pinky. It's these different bureaus that are looking at it. And so right now the time frame was we bought it in at the end of November. In December, the architect we were going to use essentially said, hey, I can't take on this job. In January, we looked for a new architect. We hired them at the end of the January with a really high fee. They were supposed to be done by the goal was to be done by the end of February, submitted, and then have all our reviews and our initial check sheets by June 2nd. That was kind of our goal. We didn't get submitted until March, like the end of March. But for whatever reason, the city actually got us our first check sheet review within like 6 weeks. And so we got that first check sheet review in early May. We expected it to be a big check sheet issue. So as we're planning with our tenants, like, okay, we plan our check sheet to come in June 2nd. We're going to have to make all these modifications and all these changes. We don't even know what they're going to be. However long it takes to respond to those, you put the check sheets in, you go back into review, and we hope we can get the final issued after just one check sheet of review. You have to have a very competent engineering and architect team on board to be able to get things done with one check sheet. So we got our review done, and the initial check sheet is very long, which you expect because it's a use conversion. You're piggybacking off a grandfathered use, so the different underwriting bureaus are looking at it through a different lens. So one example was, well, we use the word detox facility because that's what our client has been calling as a detox facility. Well, planning and zoning is fine with it. The state facility plan is like, well, we don't even care. Structural and zoning, we got the one check sheet. Structural zoning said, not zoning, structural said, you can't have a detox. You cannot call this a and all it was they focused on one word. So they look at, you have a word, but then it's defined by the level of services that you provide. That's how the structural code reads. And so you have to interpret it. Well, what are the services that you're providing? And so the reviewer, when they read the word detox, they're like, well, you're doing this level of service. You cannot put this level of service in, because they're not understanding the planning and zoning and the grandfathered use that we have. So you have to respond to structural with verbiage that they can understand so they can review it how they need to review it and pass you. But you have to use the verbiage to the planning and zoning that they understand, but they are the same application set. And then you have the state, which is a completely different bureau, a completely different application set. And actually what kind of worked for us is the state doesn't even use the word detox. And so we were able to use the state reviewer to help communicate to get us the verbiage right for the structural.
That sounds like a lot of nonsense.
Great
Did you
heavens.
syndicate this deal? Or
So
how
this
did
is
you-
why people don't respect developers. It's not nonsense. This is not nonsense. This is the prescribed direction you have to go down. So you either understand it and you successfully go down it, or you don't understand it, you don't successfully go down it. And what we're seeing on the market is there have been a lot of people that bought buildings that have no fucking clue what this means. And now they're trying to sell something and are like, oh, we paid $3 million too much for this just because we didn't understand. Nonsense is not nonsense. It's a process. Prescribed process.
Did you syndicate this deal, or how did you structure
Essentially, it's a partnership.
it?
It's
Well,
a
that's two
pooling
very
of.
different things.
No, it's not. A syndication is a partnership with very clear writing agreements with that partnership. Our partnership is the LP capital people. They don't know each other, so it's pooling people that don't know in the form of a partnership. That is what a syndication is.
Yeah, like
it's
you
just
did all
different.
the SEC.
No,
You're a sponsor. You're in charge of the deal. Your partners are not necessarily involved in the day-to-day like that. You've raised money. You have partners that are not involved in the day-to-day. That, to me, is a syndication. A partnership is like the four of us go do a deal, and we all have a defined role. We're all involved in running the day-to-day operations of it.
yeah, but they're still LLCs. They get filed on your
Sure.
tax return as partnerships.
So my question is, like, shouldn't that be a syndication then at that point? And
Yeah.
you should go through the whole SEC filing and all
I
that?
know every single human being, so them not knowing
Oh,
each
okay.
other isn't like I've known all
You
of
have
these
personal
humans.
relationships
Yes,
with
I've had
personal-
personal relationships
so
with all
then-
these people for a period of time. So that's why I say it's a partnership, because these are humans that I know that
Gotcha.
that
They
know,
just
like,
don't
and
know
trust.
each other.
They
They
just
know
don't know
you.
each other.
Yeah.
So we used an LLC, kind of like a GPLP, meaning we have managing members, which is me and my team.
Yeah.
So my team owns part of the asset. So I took instead of owning half, I devised part of my half to my team. So we're the managers. We make the day-to-day decisions, meaning the other LPs, they own 16% or less, so they don't sign on debt. They get reports. They're involved in the board of direction level of decisions, but we make
Gotcha.
we do everything for day to day so that
I see.
they don't make
Yeah.
a lot of decisions. Yeah.
I would like to clarify the nonsense piece.
Yeah.
I don't think he was saying what you're doing is nonsense.
No. Yeah.
I think he's saying what the city is making you do is nonsense, which is how I kind of.
It's
No,
brain,
I gotta be
it's
honest with you.
brain
So-
damage. This is what you
yeah.
have to go through.
I
Correct.
I
And
get
this is-
why it exists, but at some
The
point,
problem is not this. The left hand, right hand is not the problem. Here's what the problem is. We're doing a 4-unit cottage cluster right now, a middle housing land division. Middle housing land divisions are just problematic. It's the human element. So of these 4 units, we sold one of them before they were done. So it's been pending. Those people have been living in the unit for 3 months. Okay. We've sold the other 3. All 4 units are pending. We are delayed right now because the middle housing land division has not recorded. The reason it didn't record was because the planning and zoning is the intake department that then dispersed to all the other bureaus. The planner approved it. She forgot to tell all the other bureaus that she approved it. All the other bureaus have 2 weeks to say, oh, great, you approved it. Now we approved it. Now you have your final packet. Now you can take the 2 weeks to record your final packet. So from when that person approves it, it's a 4-week process to get done. They approved it 9 weeks ago. Didn't tell anybody. That cost
that's nonsense.
this one human error
Yeah.
cost me almost as much in SDC fees on one of those units. Tens of thousands of dollars. We're having to pay per diems on all the fucking buyers. We're giving early occupancy. We've got a $1.6 million note to the tune of $16,000 per month of cost of interest.
You have any recourse?
No.
It's
They're an
the city.
employee at
Yeah.
the city. So the left hand, right hand, their process is not the issue. It's the human beings running the process.
Yeah.
Everything comes down to human beings. So that's the fucking issue.
So we need
The
AI to take over.
Yeah, and the reason that right hand, left hand are not the problem is because you need to have a zoning code. They need to tell you what's legally permissible. You have to have a structural code that says this is what's safe to live in and here's what's not safe to live in. They need to review things in different ways at the same time. Like, this is a necessary component to healthy buildings. And we want a healthy building environment. So it's not the right hand, left hand. It's the human element that crosses the left hand and the right hand. And the person in the right hand saying, well, I'm only going to review it in this way. And the person in the left hand saying, I'm only going to review it in this way. And them not just coming to a reasonable solution. That is the problem.
Is that nonsense?
That is human element.
Yeah.
Which just exists. Here's another issue we're doing on one of our cottage clusters. Let me finish this because it goes on to it. So we've got 3 existing buildings. We're going to build 3 more. Of those 2 existing buildings, they've all been rentals. They're very clear. Everyone, they've been rentals for everything. 2 of them are houses. 1 of them is an apartment over a garage. The 2 houses are so old that they were clearly permitted at some time. You can clearly have them here. They're exempt from cottage cluster code. This middle structure that is clearly there, that we have plumbing permits for, that is on Sanborn maps. Well, one reviewer, so this is just planning and zoning. We've talked to 2 different reviewers. One reviewer is like, I think interpretation, you meet the exemption. And then the other reviewer is like, nah, I don't think you meet the exemption. So our strategy is literally apply and hope we get one reviewer and not the other. That's nonsense. That's fucking bullshit.
Nonsense.
Flip a coin.
Meh.
Yeah.
It looks good to me.
And then we have a plan. Okay, if we get this one reviewer, we're probably okay. If we get this other reviewer, then we're going to then approach these check sheets with this way. And then if they don't like that way, we can apply for an adjustment, which costs us money. So if we get the wrong human being, it's very costly. If we get the right human being, it's not as costly.
That's so stupid.
Yeah, and a part of it is, well, the beauty is well, one of these reviewers is the fucking person that fucked up on the other cottage and didn't tell everybody. So I don't want her to get it, but she does have the opinion that we want. So we do want her to get it. We just hope she doesn't make any other mistakes. And then the other guy who gave his opinion, well, I've had in some other historic, he was beneficial in this one, but he's not beneficial here. So again, it's interpretation.
So true or false? Are there players in the market, your market, big enough to make sure they get the right reviewer every time?
No, because you have no control over that. We do have what's called the FIR permitting system. So the FIR permitting is amazing. So if you're a FIR approved contractor, you have your own inspector and you submit your application to the inspector. It doesn't go through the bureaus, right? So instead of going intake to a desk person, you're giving intake to the person who's inspecting the property. Much faster process. So instead of getting your permit issued and then whatever random inspectors then inspect everything, you know who your inspector is. You know who they are. You get to know intimately that human being.
That's better.
And
So
they're
that
walking
is
it
better.
through the whole process.
They walk it through the entire
How
process.
do you get that? You pay for that?
Yeah, you have to have a FIR license, and they don't have any more of those licenses available.
That's how we got Astoria pushed through. Astoria Waterfront is our lead architect was also the city architect or whatever. He was the city inspector.
He's everything.
He's everything.
Yeah.
It's a small market.
You-
So you work with him on the project from day one,
Yeah.
and he's basically signing off on his own work.
Yeah.
Like,
That's beautiful.
That's how you streamline it, is you bring those people in to the projects from day one.
Yeah, and you can have relationships, so you can get information and feedback faster and quicker that gives you an advantage. And that's kind of what this is we just, there's a process that you go through. So you can go through hey, I'm going to set a schedule for a 15-minute meeting, or you can send an email to a person, right? One's a lot faster than the other. Maybe not as good of information. So you got to understand what are the channels to get the level of information you want. Yeah. So for example, like early assistance meetings, the care facility, I was very clear in understanding the grandfathered use. I met with the 15-minute on the structural. I met with planning and zoning. I never did an early assistance application, even though all the you need to do this. I'm like, why? We know what they're going to want. So they're not going to help our process. They're going to delay our process. But on that 3 unit with the new 3 units we're going to build, I really should have taken that through an EA to find these things out. Ultimately, we're just going to submit what I thought we were going to submit. It doesn't change our process, but it would have been great to know that early on rather than have it slow us down for 90 days in the middle to decide what we're going to do.
Is this what a developer does? Explain to the audience the difference between a developer and a builder.
Yeah, a builder is just going to erect the physical structure. That's all the builder does.
I take a set of plans and I go put the building up.
Yeah, and the developer buys the property, works with the architect, creates a set of plans, works the engineering, gets the engineering, works with all the permitting bureaus, so they do the entitlement process. So you have to hire all the people that are going to design it and engineer it, and then you have to take that design and engineer through the entitlement and permitting process.
So the nonsense part that Trevor's talking about is what a developer does.
That's why developers get paid more than
to work
anybody.
through all of the red tape.
Yeah.
There's a lot of risk involved.
Correct.
It's also, to me, a developer is somebody who gets wiped out faster than anybody because it's the riskiest part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
To be clear, I was saying what Mike was doing was nonsense, not that the process.
You were just telling him
I was just
the fact
trying
that
to-
he wants to be a developer and go through that is nonsense.
My
is what
whole
you're
goal of every episode is to poke Mike.
saying. Yeah, we can
So,
tell.
yeah.
We can tell.
We have
It
different
works,
goals
too.
in life. I'm really excited to actually do something impactful for the mental health community in Portland. That fucking excites me. That gets me really excited knowing that I've sat in so many fucking tenant buildings, like in their house, talked about them about their personal finance, saw the stress that they're in, concerned about homelessness. Like, I am a factor in what Portland has become. This gets to clean my balance sheet up a little bit.
Social capital.
Social capital.
Dane, you
You
got
have
any?
lots of that.
You got any deals you want to talk about? Because we don't do anything to help anybody. We just want to get rich, right?
We
Are
help
we-
people. We
oh,
help
helping
lots of
people?
people. We help lots of people. We provide housing in
Safe.
markets that need housing.
We
We provide
provide
really
safe-
good housing.
Safe, habitable
Very
housing.
safe and habitable.
Where are
Yeah.
we doing that at right now?
North Coast, Salem.
How's the Seaside project going?
Oh, it's going so good. We just got pulled permits on the third building. Well, paid for permits. We already
There's going to
had.
be 5 buildings there, and we're just starting.
We got
number
5
3?
buildings. We're starting the framing now for number 3. So we've already got the dirt work done and
Foundation poured.
foundations
So
are
you've got
poured
a
for all that.
site development permit for all the site work,
Mhm.
and then you have individual building permits for
Yeah.
the buildings that you're
So
building.
it's 7 permits total.
Okay.
But
And-
so the buildings will get CO individually, one by one, as
Yeah.
they're finished.
Mhm. Yeah, because you kind of you want your subs to just be at the job site for a month, and then they're doing one building for this period of time. So we're
Right.
kind of rolling start. It's a rolling start for all the buildings.
I see.
So because we're using a lot of guys from Salem, and so we want to kind of have them know that for like the month of August.
You'll be there.
Yeah, it's not a huge crew, but we know they're going to do it right, and so
And
Why
this
are-
isn't a physical staging issue where you have to phase the buildings out. You're phasing them out based on labor.
that would be more of a Mark question.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. but-
Sometimes you have to phase stuff out from a staging standpoint.
Yeah, that's our problem with the 5th building is it's
Mhm.
where we're keeping trucks and
Yep.
supplies. and
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
we
yeah.
want to get that footing in, but we don't really want to get that footing in
Yeah.
'cause that's where we're keeping everything.
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
So it's coming along good. It's moving along fast.
So just so
Yeah.
we're clear, I want to make sure this is clear. All that 2 months that you put in the site development, that's part of your construction timeline. So if you say it takes 6 months to build a property and you don't consider that 2 months of like site development,
No,
you're a fucking
no.
liar.
Yeah.
It's an 8-month project.
Yeah.
Let's just make it clear.
No, we
Site
agree.
development's part of the
We're-
entire
our
construction
goal is
timeline.
12 months.
We're
Yeah.
shooting for 12.
Yeah, I've just been hearing people just like take that out of their
like,
timeline to
No, that's
boost
part
their
of it.
resume. I
Yeah.
fucking hate that.
The moment that the loan comes onto our balance sheet, we closed on the land the day that we got the loan.
All right, guys. Mike unplugged our whole box. We're not sure what you heard of this episode.
Yeah, I was just trying to cut it back in.
We're not sure what we were talking about.
I didn't fuck up. Whoever put the cord here fucked up.
I thought Mike passed out
I
and
did.
fell on the power
It
switch.
scared me.
But
My ears went blind.
since we don't know what we were talking about, thank you guys for listening.
We know we're
I
We're talking
started
about
this.
the land time,
Your
the timeline,
timeline on
the timeline.
construction. You got to start it the day that you
Yeah.
close on the land.
So developer terms, you want to close when you have your permits,
Yeah.
not prior, because that's where you bring a lot of risk in, is when you buy prior to having permits.
yeah,
Well, it's
we
time to go
closed when we
anyway.
got
a
permits.
lot of risk.
Yeah,
Mhm.
a lot of risk.
Yeah, you want your permits before you close.
Yeah,
your
and I'd say even in our condo pipeline, it was choosing to buy stuff without being fully prepared that was the bigger issue than the market changes, than a lot of stuff. It was lack of preparedness and eagerness to move forward.
Yeah, you're so excited to get it going.
So excited. This stuff pencils better than anything. We can sit on it for years and it's better. Shit.
Yeah, I have had clients before that closed on dirt prior to development or prior to permits because they thought that, well, the city's told me it's going to be okay.
It's a
and
sure
this and
deal.
that.
Mhm.
And then it's just like, oh, crap. Even if it's written in an email or a letter or anything, like things just change and things pop up afterwards. And usually it's like, no, not going to do that.
Oh, dude, we the Gresham project we were looking at, one of the reasons we pulled out was they're working on a new cottage cluster code behind the scenes. The only reason they told us that, so we've met with them, we've sent so many emails, we've had a whole bunch of back and forth, because we actually wrote the $2,000 check, because we actually got the early application meeting done where they have to provide written notes. In that meeting, they said, oh yeah, new cottage cluster code, we're working on it. It will launch in the fall. We don't know what it's going to be like, but there are some major changes in there you should consider. One of them is your courtyard's going from a 15-foot wide requirement to a 20-foot wide requirement. And if they do that, we lose some units. And so if we're on an unknown, hey, how soon can we get our application in?
Mm-hmm.
It could make a big difference.
Huge amount of risk. And we only found that out because we wrote a $2,000 check and did a level of due diligence that sometimes we do and sometimes we don't.
So
Kinda
will
lucky.
you do that all the time now?
On raw land, absolutely.
Yeah.
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 All right.
Well, I closed on a deal this week, but you guys don't want to hear about that. It's just a little 12-plex in Astoria. I've been working on it for a long time. Actually, this is the one I said I negotiated on a napkin. It took me 30 seconds to do this deal. You guys make deals look so hard.
Dude, Mark's deal was on a nap. I love that. Mark's
sick.
presentation.
I've done the same thing. But
Mark's
he takes
sick.
pictures of it.
Yeah,
So
that's smart.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't even think I had a napkin. I just sat down. We had lunch, and I said, "Here's." He gave me his numbers. I said, "Yes, what we would do," and he goes, "Okay," and we
Done.
shook hands, and it was done.
Yeah.
Just, I mean,
beautiful.
it shouldn't be hard.
The art of the
it's-
deal.
It's simple. It's just not easy.
Well, he came to us wanting to do the deal, and he respected us and knew that we were in the North Coast doing deals.
Mhm.
He's like, "I only want to sell to you guys."
Mm.
That makes it easier. He read
That's
a
a
newspaper
beautiful thing.
article about something. I don't know.
Gabe is going to be the mayor of the city. So I'd love to sell to the mayor.
Dude, you want your work to speak for itself.
true.
One of the deals we have in escrow right now is the realtor picked us out because they like what we do.
That's what you need.
That's what you need. They're like, hey, my client cares what's going to be
Yep.
built here.
Yep.
We specifically going to you because we want what
It's like,
you're
here's
gonna
10
build.
offers, but here's the buyer who's actually going to close the deal.
Well, and
be-
even
And build
be good to
something
work with.
beautiful.
And beyond that, so there's a 16-unit cottage community going in across the street, and then they're like, no, that's way too much for the neighborhood. We're going to do 9 with 9 parking spots. So you can do 16 with no parking or 9 with 9 parking. The impact on the neighborhood is significantly different, and some sellers really care about that.
Yeah. All right. Well, Trevor's checked out. He said this is the worst episode we've ever done. I think it's because we talk about him launching the boat through the air into boulders. The boat did not sink.
Still did less damage than Dan.
It's not true.
He
It's
just
way
didn't have
more damage.
enough stuff to
I
throw
think
at me
I'm
and
going to
make me
have to
feel
take
bad.
out Keyman insurance on Trevor and Dane if they're going to
Just
Oh, you
Trevor.
don't have key man
Just
insurance
Trevor.
on him?
No.
Just on Trevor.
No.
I think if you want to sleep at night, that needs to be fun.
Yeah.
Just on
Yeah.
Trevor.
Well, we're about to have a stack meeting.
He's going
here
to
after
kill
this,
you
so
along the way,
we're gonna,
dude.
We're going to talk about
Take
Key.
it out on me and Trevor.
Yes.
Maybe I shouldn't allow the two of you on the boat
At the same time. Yeah.
Trevor said he was going to buy a Lamborghini, and I said, "Let me know so I can get a life insurance policy that I'm the beneficiary of under your name. I'll pay for it every month."
Oh, no. We'll put him in an EV Hummer. It weighs 10,000 pounds.
Oh
That's
yeah,
safer.
that'd be so safe for him.
Yeah, so then you just have to worry about a lawsuit. Can you get Keyman lawsuit insurance?
Goodness.
Liability lawsuit insurance.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot for listening, Deal Junkies. We hope you're having fun because we are. If you have somebody you want to be on the show or you want to be on the show, please reach out. Please subscribe, like us, subscribe. What else do you do? Share us. Yes. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.